And we're live. We're live. First live stream. We are live. Let's see how everything works. There we go. There we go. There we go. That works. That works. And we are live. Okay, awesome. See if people join in. If not, we can get started. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are doing our first live stream and we are going to answer questions. We are going to answer questions asked by the people in the comments. And I have the questions right here on my screen. And we are going to go one by one and we are going to start answering questions. We are live. This is our first live. So please bear with me if I make some mistakes, but we will answer all the questions asked in the comments today. We are live. Right. Let's see. Okay, let's get started. So let's get started. Uh, all right. The first question that I get asked very commonly is pertaining to user stories. So let's get started with that. Pertaining to user stories, how to split and splice a user story. Tell us a little bit more about a user story. So what a user story is basically it's a way of communicating. It's a way of communicating between the business as well as the technical team, where the business is trying to get something done and the technical team is working on that. That way of communication is called a user story. It can be different from different teams. I say that a lot. It can be different for one team and it can be different for other team. But most usable way of writing a user story is describing the who, the what, and the why. So the who as a user, that's where the user story starts, and it's actually the smallest unit possible. So we try to break down the user story in the smallest unit possible, because what that does is that removes any vagueness, that removes any uncertainties that might pertain. If a user story doesn't is not to the smallest of its core, there might be uncertainties that might pop up. So that therefore that reason we try to create the user stories to the smallest unit possible. We also use the invest criteria to make sure that our user story is properly spliced. So the question that is being asked is, please can you talk about how to split stories. So once you have split of epic into a smallest unit possible that can be independently delivered, you match it to the invest criteria. First you splice it, and then you match it to the invest criteria. And what the invest criteria basically is that it says independent, negotiable, it is it is economical, it is small, and it is testable. So what that means is that a user story just by itself can be delivered in a sprint. It's a minimum viable product in itself. So that's how you splice a user story. A user story, once it should have an acceptance criteria in there as well. What acceptance criteria is basically it's a set of requirements that once all these requirements are matched, the product owner can say that this user story is done. Okay, and then one other thing that is being pushed out there nowadays is that a user story is just the responsibility of the product owner. That's actually not true. The user story is the responsibility of the whole technical team. Everybody in my team is responsible for writing the user stories or creating user stories. Hello, hello, how are you, Anna? So that's what a user story is. And how you splice user story is, you basically, once you have created the shortest format of a epic that you can, you match it with the invest criteria, which is independent, negotiable, variable, economical, small, and testable. So once that user story meets that criteria, that means that user story is good to go. Okay, and generally one user story, it's a rule of thumb that one user story generally is one sprint. Okay, it cannot be more than one sprint. You have to deliver it in one sprint. So that's the general goal. And yeah, so that's what a user story is. And how you splice user story is, you basically, for example, let's say, I don't know how I can share my screen here. I would want to share a notebook or something of that sort. Let's say there is a user story that says that as a customer, I want to log in into a web screen so I can, as a real estate buyer, I want to log in into a web screen so I can access all my listings that I can buy, that I have to buy, right? Now, this is a user story. Can you break this user story? Can you break this user story into multiple smaller user stories? If the answer is yes, then break it down into multiple smaller user stories. How you can break it down is, as a real estate buyer, I want to log. This is the original user story. As a real estate buyer, I want to log in into the screen so that I can access my listings. Now we can break it down further. As a real estate buyer, when I log in, I want to be able to filter through all the listings that are available so that I can access my listings. That's how you can break it down further. And this happens along with the help of the technical team. When you have broken it down to a point where it cannot be broken down further, that's a perfect user story. So what generally I use a story, generally what we follow is we follow the vertical slicing of user story. What vertical slicing of the user story means is that it covers the three layers, where it covers the UI layer, it covers the logic layer, and it covers the database layer, which is the backend layer. So when a user story can cover all three layers, that's why they call them full stack developers. So when a user story can cover all three layers, that's when a user story is independent, and it can be delivered on its own. Good, Anna, good. So that's about user stories. We can create, I will be creating a separate videos on user stories, and we can go more deeper into user stories. So that's how you splice user stories. And when you give estimation points, that story point estimation that is done with the user stories during the planning poker exercise, that is done to kind of like give it story points. Okay, this story is based on its complexity, based on relative estimation. So what I do is that, in my team, what we do is that we have a particular user story as a wall of reference. That user story, let's say, is 2 story points. So then based on that user story, this user story will be 5 story points. It's a relative estimation based on complexity and risk and all those factors. So that's a little bit about user stories. Vertical slicing of user stories across the UI, the logic, and the database layer. And vertical slicing is done with the help of full stack developers. And that's basically it for a user story. Make it as small as possible, and then it has to be delivered in one sprint typically. And it has to match the invest criteria, and it is considered done once the product owner says that all the criteria in the acceptance criteria is done. Then that's when a product owner signs off, and that's when a user story is done. It is a minimum viable product in itself. It is spread across 3 layers. So yeah, so those are the things about a user story that I can share. Some other things maybe. uh, yeah, so those are the things about a user story that I can share right now. And it cannot be a task, basically. It cannot be a task. What is a task is, it doesn't give any clear value to the customer. It doesn't have a clearly defined who, what, who, why, and who, why, and what. And but a user story does. And that's why it's different than a task. Okay, so that's the question about user story that I had in the chat by Rachel. So thank you, Rachel. And that's what a user story is. Now moving on to the second question that I got in the comments was, thanks by time pass. Thanks. With regards to two question about definition of done and acceptance criteria, okay, will the tester testing the negative test cases be part of acceptance criteria? That is, enter email address with star and hash and non-permittable special character, etc., or enter wrong password. What is the prompt? Or will there be separate stories and separate criteria? So this is a very interesting question. Basically, what time pass is asking is that when the tester is entering negative test cases, should they be part of acceptance criteria when the product owner is attaching it to a particular user story, or should they be a separate story? So this is how it works. In most teams, every team can have their own structure, but this is generally how it works. The acceptance criteria that is related to a particular story related to testing is not this deep that you mentioned here, that putting in this negative test case or positive test case. It is that, will it pass the testing or not? If it passes the testing, we're good to go. We can move ahead, and this user story works, and the product owner can check off, and we are good. But if it doesn't pass that criteria, then that user story is no good. And to pass that criteria, how the testing team write their user stories, that's on the testing team. That's on you, product owner, and the testing team while doing the sprint, while doing the backlog refinement and sprint planning sessions. That is upon you guys to create those user stories for the testing team. So when we are talking about acceptance criteria for a user story, the acceptance criteria is basically that will this story pass the testing rules and the testing frameworks or not. They won't go in such depth while writing the acceptance criteria, like okay, this use case will meet or this use case will not meet. That is the part of the testers. They will, once the story, once it's been developed and everything, they will go in their test cases and they will write their own stories about that particular user stories, and they will write their own tasks, sorry, about their particular user stories, and then they will start working on those tasks related to that user story. That is upon them. So that's how I would answer this question. Time pass. If this was asked to you. Uh, Next question is by Sunita Rao. Sunita says, "Thank you for getting back. At 7:45 is Q3. You have completed the work 2 days before the sprint end, and PO wants to put in more work. Okay. Subsequently, you talk about how to handle scope creep and removing requirements before adding. So let's answer the first question here. 2 days before the sprint end, we have finished all the work, and then the PO comes in and he says he wants to add more work. Okay, so in that particular scenario, what I would do is that, see, you need to have that understanding and that working agreement with the product owner about these scenarios beforehand. Okay, before you start the sprint, you need to let the product owner that, when we are running a sprint, we are running it tight. So what this question shows me, that you finished all the work 2 days before the end of the sprint. So what this shows me is that your backlog refinement meeting is weak. Okay, what this also shows me is that you guys are under committing for your sprint, which are both not good things. Okay, under committing for your sprint, it is okay if the stakeholders are too hard, and you need to be there, you need to deliver things on at a particular time, then it makes sense. But under committing and weak backlog refinement, these are the two reasons that this thing is happening, that you are able to finish all your work 2 days before the sprint. So let's say it happens, okay, no matter, okay, we are not proactive, you don't have a working agreement with the product owner detailing all these things, that hey, if this happens, what will be the action item, how will we proceed with this. Let's say you don't have any of this and this happens, and it's your first week as a scrum master. What do you do now? So see, this is the thing. The most probable thing that you should do in this case is that, since we finished our work 2 days before, let's work on pair programming exercises. Let's work on building a cross functional team. Let's work on managing our technical debt while this is going on, because there is a probability, if you finish the work, something might come up in testing again. And if it comes up in testing, you need those 2 days to, if you start working on something else, then you will need to kind of like reshuffle everything, and it will be a mess. So keep, if you already finished everything, keep those 2 days out, unless you have a particular story or something that you can work in those 2 days that is important to the business. Otherwise, keep those 2 days out to work on cross functional team building. Keep those 2 days out for any testing things that might pop up. Keep those 2 days out for working on technical debt. So what this question shows me is that in Sunita Rao's team currently, the PO, the backlog refinement process is weak, where they are not, and the sprint planning process is weak, where they are not adding extra items into the sprint, and they are not kind of estimating what's their capacity like and working on that. And that, it also shows me is that, what they are under committing. So that's, those are not two good things. So work on that, bring it up in the retrospective, sit down with the product owner, the senior developer, and the technical team, and kind of go through it, what happened, and make sure you kind of resolve this issue, right? Now, the next question she has is, subsequently you talk about how to handle scope creep and removing requirements before adding. But sorry about that, but specifically with regards to the scenario in question 3, the work is already completed. Okay, so I assume that there is no requirement to be removed before reviewing the new requirement from the product owner. Yeah. So, basically, when I'm talking about scope creep, what I'm saying is that, don't undercommit and don't overcommit. What I'm saying is that, know your team capacity well. And then, when you are starting a sprint, and you have a good understanding of your team capacity based on the previous sprints, and based on how you have done in the previous sprints. Based on that, you assign work towards your team, towards the sprint. And then once you have started the sprint, if something new is coming in, something else has to go out that has a less priority. So that's what I'm saying when I'm saying that, when I'm talking about scope creep. That's basically what I'm saying. something has to go out, so something else is coming in. And when you are in a sprint, basically about 5 to 6% time of your sprint capacity has to be technical debt. Make sure you have that, because handling technical debt is super important, because it can come and bite you down the line, and it can be very very expensive for the business, and it can be a danger. So make sure you are handling technical debt. And generally product owners are against handling technical debt, so you might have to have that conversation up front. How are we handling technical debt? Do we have any technical debt? And if we do, it's like financial debt, it keeps piling on, and then down the line it becomes so much that it stops the system from working completely, and then it's a whole workaround, and it's a lot of work. So make sure you're sparing some time of your sprint for technical debt. Make sure you're sparing some time of your team for pair programming exercises and things like that. So make sure you are doing those things. Okay. So that is that. Now the next question is, I have two questions. Chiogo, when can you create a working agreement? When you can you create a working agreement if you don't have the same team on every project? Okay, yeah. If you don't have the same team on every project, most probably you will have the same product owner. If you don't have the same product owner on every project, have a new working agreement with each person. I mean, it's not a big deal, right? When you're working on a new team and you have a new product owner and a new technical team, have a new working agreement. Don't be scared to bring that document up, man. It will help you long term a lot, because like, for example, the previous question we were answering about the work, about the scope creep, right? It will help you in those kind of situations. Now if you already finished the work 2 days before the sprint ends, and now you don't have any more work, and the product owner wants to bring in more work, where do you go now? You have that conversation initially with the working agreement. You make those expectations clear with people with the working agreement. It's super super important. Whenever you started a new organization, have a working agreement based on your expectations and based on their expectations from you. It will play a huge part long term. So if you are working with multiple teams or the teams are changing, have a working agreement with every team. Okay. Now the next question is from Brandy. Who would a person I do have one question. Who would a person with no experience in Scrum, how would a person with no experience in Scrum answer all these questions? Okay, yeah. See, I get that question a lot. See, this is the reality of the situation, right? This is the utter reality. Scrum Master is a quasi management role. What I mean by quasi management is that you need experience to function in this role. If you don't have management experience, nobody will pick you up right off the street and make you a manager of the team, or of a technical team that handles multi-million dollar projects out the blue. You need to have experience to become a Scrum Master. It's that simple. Now, experience not in a technical team. You need to have experience managing a team. You need to have experience managing a project. And that experience can be in multiple domains. Okay, so if you are a new person who's starting out as a Scrum Master and you're looking for a job, but you say, hey, I only worked as a security guard, or I've only worked as as a person, she's wherever she's working, I've only worked in certain roles in healthcare and things like that, I've never worked as a Scrum Master. See, we are all Scrum Masters in some way, shape, or form in our lives. The only thing, if you are a new person, let me give you a secret, and you want to become a Scrum Master, let me give you a secret. First of all, you need experience to become a Scrum Master. Get that through your head. That's the most important thing. You need experience. Without experience, no one will hire you. Second thing is, we are all Scrum Masters in our lives. And how we are Scrum Masters is, we are all managing something or the other. We are managing our kids, we are managing family, we are managing, we are managing projects in our household, whatever, we are managing our kitchen, whatever, right? We are all Scrum Masters in some way, shape, or form. We are all managing something. If nothing, we are all managing our lives. So we are all Scrum Masters in some way, shape, or form. So you have to understand that. And when you are applying for positions, when you are, learning about how to become a Scrum Master, keep this in mind. Make that learning part parallel to what you are managing. If you are just managing your life, right? Let's say if you are a security guard and you're managing, just your work stream, put that parallel to the Scrum Master role. Put that parallel to the process that you are learning as a Scrum Master. Put them parallel and make those parallel combinations. Okay, if a Scrum Master is doing this, how does this relate to my role that I'm working on right now? Okay, a Scrum Master is managing a team and he's removing dependencies. Maybe as a family person, I'm removing dependencies for my family in some way, shape, or form. So I'm a Scrum Master. So that's how you have to think about it. What that will do for you is it will make the learning process easier, number one. Number two, it will make is that you will start feeling in yourself as a scrum master, and it will be easier to crack the interviews. It'll be easier to kind of explain to people that, hey, I am a scrum master in real life. I mean, you know so that's how you should look at it. That gives you a different perspective to look at things, and it help you get done faster. There is nothing like an entry level scrum master, let me tell you that. You only become a scrum master with experience. One in a million opportunity you will find like a entry level scrum master, no experience required, this and that. It's very rare to find entry level scrum master opportunity. If anybody's telling you that you can get a job without any experience as a scrum master, run in the opposite direction. Okay, they are there to take your money basically. Okay, there is nothing like entry level scrum master. You need experience. Okay, how you prove that experience is upon you. And what I'm telling you is run it parallel to your personal life, and make sense of things. That way you'll be able to learn things faster, and you'll be able to grow faster. So that's that. So that's Brandy's question. Now moving on to the next question. Mark, do I need to be certified before I get mentorship from you? I'm in IT, but no Scrum experience. So yeah, so I also give mentorship. If you are a person who's looking for a Scrum Master job, click on the link down below, and I will be happy to help you out on this journey. And I'm the only person who can help you get a Scrum Master job. So Mark is asking, do I need to get certified? See, I have seen people in this industry who are PhD holders, who are MSc holders, who are bachelor's, masters, to become Scrum Master. You don't need you don't need anything to become a Scrum Master. Let me make it clear to you. You don't need anything to become a Scrum Master. Okay, all you need to do is you need to understand what the role does. You need to be proficient in those things that the role brings to the table, and you need to be explain it in a way to the people who is person who is hiring you, that you understand what role they are hiring for, and you can bring value to them in that particular role. All these things that you have to have this it's it's okay, it's good to have, it definitely adds something to your resume, but is it a must to have? You cannot get a job without it. I mean, that's I help people every day. Okay, that's how I'm going to put it. You don't need any sort of PhD. If you need a PhD degree to become a Scrum Master, I mean, you are stupid. Let me put it that way. So have proper understanding of the role, and if you can if you can bring a lot of value to the role, and you can work with the business and show them that you are actually able to perform all the functionalities of the role and talk in those terms, you're good. So you don't need any certification, you don't need anything. If you need help, click on the link down below, I'll help you out. But you don't need anything. You just need to be understand the role well, and you just need to be able to bring value for the role you're getting hired, and explain that value in their terms. It's that simple. Okay, mock test channel says these are the stages of a team: forming, storming, norming, performing. Actually, mock test channel, there's a last stage as well, adjourning. So there's 5 stages of a team formation. It's called Tuckman's ladder. There is forming, there is storming, there is norming, and there is performing, and then there is adjourning. So what a forming stage is when the team is getting formed, everyone is new and everyone is getting accustomed to each other. Hey, how are you? What's your name? Hey, that kind of thing. Storming is when they have been working together for some time and they're kind of conflicting with each other. Hey, this is a senior person, he's not helping me out. Hey, this and that. When they are having conflict with each other, it can be between a junior or senior person. It can be over user stories, a cherry picking of user stories, and multiple things, right? The norming stages is when they're getting normalized, working with each other, when they know, okay, this is how this person works, and this is how this person works, and this is how the team structure works. Okay, yeah, he might be earlier, that thing of his used to make me angry. He used to pick up user stories on his own, and I didn't used to get the story I want. So that thing of his used to make me angry, but now we are okay because we are in the norming stages. And after the norming stages is the performing stages. Performing stages is when the team is working together quite well, they're gelled together quite well, and they are doing all the responsibilities that are required. And the last stage is the adjourning stages. Adjourning is when they're moving away, and the team is kind of falling apart. So forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. So basically, your responsibility as a Scrum Master, when you join the organization new on a team, you have to understand first and observe which stage is that team on. which stage of Tuckman's ladder is that team on? Are they still having conflict with each other when they are working together? Are they still in the forming stages where nobody knows what role they are playing, nobody knows what story to pick, there is no coordination, everybody's on their own, and things are like that. So that is one thing you have to understand. Mr. Timor, I'll get your question, give me just a moment. So forming stage, and so when you join the new in a team, you have to know what stage that team is on. Is it on the norming stages, is it the performing stages, what stage that team is on? And when you get to that, that's how you need to start working. If they are in the norming stages, then you need to make sure that they get to performing and adjourning. So you need to have that understanding. Okay. Mr. Timor is asking a question. Is it possible to get a Scrum Master role without having a LinkedIn account? Yeah, sure. I mean, you can definitely, but it's not. I don't recommend it. But you can do that. You can do that definitely, but I don't recommend it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to post them down in the comments, and I'll be answering them. Any questions you guys might have about this Scrum Master role, what a Scrum Master does, all these things. A user the question is coming from Selena Akhtar. A user story is not fully developed, and the design team and product owner are promising that it is to be delivered in the next sprint and have placed into the sprint backlog. What would be your step? So a user, basically what she's saying, that there is a user story, it doesn't have a proper acceptance criteria, it doesn't have a proper definition of done or any understand, it's not even written properly what needs to be done, and the design team and the product owner has promised that it has to be delivered in the next sprint, and they have placed it in the sprint backlog. What would be your step? So the thing is this, right? First of all, why are they placing it in the sprint backlog if it doesn't have all those criteria? There should be an understanding that a user story can only be pushed in the sprint backlog if it matches all that criteria, if it matches a proper acceptance criteria, if it has a proper definition of done, it's written in a proper format, it matches the invest criteria. That's when a user story needs to be put into the sprint backlog. Before that, why are they even putting it there? That's the first question that I ask you. If that is happening, you need to have that understanding with them that, hey, once a user story meets all these criteria, it is the smallest unit possible, it meets the invest criteria, it is written down in the proper acceptance criteria, and there is no vagueness around it, that's when we will put everything in the sprint planning. Before that, we cannot put any story in the sprint plan, in the sprint backlog. So you need to have that conversation with them, with the design team and the product owner. Now they are saying that it is delivered to be delivered in the next sprint, which is fine. You can deliver it in the next sprint if you know that your team capacity, that you can handle, that they can handle that work in one sprint and they can deliver it in the next sprint. It's fine. But the thing is that have that conversation that, hey, if a user story is coming into the sprint backlog, proper acceptance criteria, proper definition of done, it has to be written properly, and it has to match the invest criteria, which is independent, negotiable, economical, small, and testable. And once it matches that invest criteria, and it can be delivered within a sprint, which is a typical requirement for a particular user story, that's when we can put it in the sprint backlog. So you need to have that conversation with them, Selena. Okay, and you can bring that up in the retrospective as well. Okay, now the next question is, please explain about technical debt, spillover, and spikes. Technical debt. Okay, so when we are building something, right, when we are building a product, or everybody has a different understanding of it, but when we are building a product, when we are developing a product, there are certain things that might be left out for later, that we will handle this later, we will do this later. That's basically technical debt. Okay, what we are doing is we are pushing something to complete it later, that might not be important right now but can be done later. Right now it doesn't impact or impact the performance of the product, or it doesn't impact what we are trying to deliver to the business. That's something that can be pushed on to later, is called technical debt. Now, what technical debt, how you need to handle technical debt as a scrum master, it is your responsibility that within every sprint you keep at least 5% of your sprint space for technical debt, bug fixes, and other cross functional team exercises like pair programming and whatnot, so that you can be able to vertically slice the user stories in the long term. So that has to be your responsibility as a scrum master, to handle technical debt. Have some space in your sprint, at least 5%, to manage technical debt. Okay, so that is what technical debt is. Now, what about spillover stories? So spillovers, spillovers happen. Spillovers, if you are having a spillover user story and something needs to be done, then if it's high priority, it needs to be done, it needs to be done. So it has to be given priority in the next sprint. But if you already have a workflow, then you need to sit down with the team and make that discussion how to proceed with it. Basically, it will be a team decision. You are just a facilitator. A scrum master is a facilitator. A scrum master is not necessarily the decision maker. Okay, that's why it is not a very technical role, and that's why I say that anybody can become a scrum master, because you don't need to know JavaScript, you don't need to know React, you don't need to know native or anything like that to become a scrum master. You need to have an understanding of how the technical team work, what their strengths are, what the capacity is, how the resource allocation works. You need to have that understanding, but you don't need to know all that knowledge yourself. Non-technical person can do a great job becoming a scrum master. What you need to understand is, you need to understand three things. I always say that: people, process, and product. People, process, product. You understand the people when you join a new organization. You understand the people, give it 2 weeks, know who is who in the team. Once you understand the people, then you understand the process. How do they work together? What's their process like? Once you understand the people, once you understand the process, third thing is the product. Now, once you have understood how the people work, who is who in the team, how the team hierarchy is, and you understood the process, what process they follow to finish their work, what process they follow to kind of do the things, then you understand the product. What is the product? What are they actually building? What are they actually trying to deliver to the business? Once you understand these three things, and understand these three things quite well, you will do great as a scrum master. There's nothing else to know. I mean, it's that simple. Okay, spikes. So spikes, what spike is basically, it's like an enabler story. In safe, we call it enabler story. What it is basically, let's say I'm trying to build a login screen with my team. So to build that login screen, I need to do some sort of documentation. I need to do some sort of like research and analysis, how to attach that to the auth, whether to use AWS auth or whether to use something else. So not getting into technicals, but how will I attach that to the backend to the auth when people are logging in? That's a research task that I have to create. That's basically a spike. That's what we call a spike. Anything that doesn't add direct value to the customer, anything that doesn't add direct value to the business in terms of like a minimum viable product, that that task is called a spike. It can be a story, it can be a task. It is not adding a direct value to the customer. It is basically enabling us to complete this user story, which can add direct value to the customer. That's basically what a spike is. Okay, moving on to the next question is from Joseph. Okay, what if you don't have any experience in that field? I work in healthcare, but very little, if any, Scrum. So I already answered this question. Joseph, watch the live stream back. So what you need to do, Joseph, is that you need to understand that Scrum and your personal life, healthcare life, where you're working, there is a lot of similarities. You need to be able to match those similarities with each other. Once you do that, you will be able to learn everything faster. You will be, whatever you do in your daily life, you will be able to attach it to what you will do as a scrum master. And once you are able to make that connection, things will become much easier for you. Then it's all about being creative. Then it's all about being able to explain your experience in those terms to the interviewers who are going to hire you. And that's how it will be easier for you to become a scrum master. Let me tell you something again. If you don't have experience, you cannot become a scrum master. You need experience to become a scrum master. And if someone is telling you that you don't have experience and you can become a scrum master, run in the opposite direction. There is nothing like an entry level scrum master. Nobody is going to put you in a management role just picking you up off the street. You need experience to become a scrum master. Okay, how you get that experience, how you show that experience, how you communicate that experience, that depends on your own creativity. It's that simple. And you don't need a certification, you don't need a degree, you don't need a PhD, you don't need nothing like that to become a scrum master. It's a non-technical role. It's a very easy job. Once you get the job, this is the easiest job in the world. It doesn't require any hard skills at all. It's the easiest job in the world. But you need to understand the people, the process, the product to become a great scrum master. Okay, moving on to Other question from Shan Magnesh. How's productivity measured in a Scrum team? How does a Scrum Master know that productivity has gone down in a team? Okay, so let's answer the first one here. How is productivity measured in a Scrum team? So how productivity is measured in a Scrum team is basically with using the term called velocity. So that's how you measure the productivity. That's basically how many story points did you complete in this particular sprint. That completion of that number that you did in the amount of story points, that's your velocity. That's how you measure the productivity of the Scrum team. Okay, so the amount of velocity is the productivity, and you compare it with the previous sprints. So let's say in the last sprint you did 5 story points, this sprint you did 8 story points, so that velocity is going up. Okay, and that how you know how productive the team is. Over time the velocity has to be going up. There are multiple ways to increase the velocity. You can automate the processes, which Jira is doing on a big scale right now. If you use Jira, you know what I'm talking about. You can Second thing you can do is you can start the estimation process in a different way. If you are giving something 3 story points before, now you can give it 2 story points, now you can give it 1 story points, or now you can give it 5 story points, which to the stakeholders it will show that your velocity is increasing. But is it actually increasing? That's the question. The third thing is you can to increase the velocity, what you can do is you can uh, when you are writing a user story, when the product owner and the technical team they're writing a user story, what you can do is you can ensure that they give it a proper acceptance criteria. The user story matches the invest criteria, and once it matches the invest criteria, that means it's as small as it can be, and there is no vagueness when we are going to work on the user story. When there is no vagueness and everybody knows what they are going to do, it saves them a lot of time when they're actually working on the user story. So that's how you can increase the productivity of your technical team, Sean. So basically productivity is measured in velocity. Okay, how many story points you completed this sprint, how many story points you completed in the previous sprint. Generally the business likes to see an increasing velocity over time, but if it's not increasing or it's kind of stable and increasing slowly, that's fine as well. It cannot be going down. That can be troublesome in some companies. Okay, then the other thing is how you increase the velocity, how you increase the productivity. Number one, you change your estimation ways. If you are giving something 3 story points, give it 5 story points, inflate everything. That is one way to do it, which some people do, some teams they do. And the second way is you automate whatever you can. The third way is that you write proper user stories with the help of the technical team and the product owner. You write proper user stories with proper acceptance criteria, proper definition of done. There should be no vagueness when someone is starting to work on that user story. That there shouldn't be like going back and forth to kind of get an understanding on this, understanding of that. Everything should be clear, and they work on it. Work is going on smoothly. And also whenever dependencies are coming in for your team, let's say you're working and you started work and some dependency came in for the other team, get on top of things faster. As a Scrum Master, get on top of things faster, get those dependencies resolved with the other team or with other Scrum Masters or within your team or whatever. Get on those things faster and get them done faster, so that the team keeps on moving. So as a Scrum Master, you can actually do a lot to increase the velocity of the team. You can do a lot of things. You just have to know you just have to know what your team is working on, and you have to be on top of things at all times. So next question is from Paresh. If PO will tell you that after the next sprint, he will give you PBI, which is product backlog increment, but for upcoming sprint, nothing is there. So for the upcoming sprint, there is no product backlog increment. How will you handle it? Even if informed by Scrum Master that product backlog increment should be there for upcoming sprint, but PO is not providing any product backlog increment. So first of all, Paresh, how are you ending up in these situations? Where you don't have enough product backlog items for the next sprint. How are you ending up in this situation? What happened to the working agreement? What happened to being off top of things? What happened to having enough product backlog items in the backlog for the next 6 months, for the next 3 months, for the next 4 sprints, for the next 3 sprints? What happened to that? How are you ending up in these situations? That's what you need to figure out as a Scrum Master. Why don't you have enough product backlog items for the next sprint? This is a risk. This is a severe risk. Okay, so you need to sit down with the product owner, and you need, or whoever, if you need to escalate it further to his boss, go ahead, escalate it, and have a sit down and try to understand why don't we have enough product backlog items for the next sprint. This is a severe risk. This is a business continuation procedure risk. Okay, so understand that having having a good working agreement will solve this problem. Okay, having understanding with the product owner, having that roadmap of the next 6 months, what the sprints will look like, having that understanding before the project starts will help you also. But if you're still, let's say if you're working on a you're jumping in a new scrum master and this is the situation, you don't have enough work items, enough PBI for the next sprint, enough product backlog for the next sprint, where do you go from here now? So in that case, you need to have a conversation with that product owner or his boss, and you need to tell them, hey, this is where we are right now. If we don't have enough product backlogs for the next sprint, and if we don't get something designed, we don't get something cooking, we're done. The team will be sitting idle. What are we going to work on? So you need to have that understanding with them. You need to have the conversation with them. And how you are ending up in this situation when you are so close to the next sprint, I mean, this is troublesome. This is troublesome. If you have been working there for a while, then that means you are not doing a good job, honestly. So you need to have that conversation with your product owner. Hey, let's sit down, let's design enough backlog items for the next 3 months. Okay, so that we are safe. We don't want to be in this situation. Okay, you are too dependent on the product owner. He's basically a single point of failure. If that product owner leaves, what are you going to work on? There's nothing to work on, right? It's that simple. So have that conversation with him, sit down with him or his boss and have that conversation, that and build out in that working agreement. We will have a working product backlog for the next 3 sprints or the next 4 sprints. And there is actually a metric. It's called backlog health. So, as a Scrum Master, it should be your responsibility to make sure that the backlog is healthy. That is, there is enough items for the next 6 sprints, plus, or the next 4 sprints, plus all the items have a proper, acceptance criteria or whatever is your process, right? Should have proper acceptance criteria, should have proper definition of ready. So, all those things should be there in the product, in the backlog of your team. That is called a healthy backlog. So, you need to start working on that. And you're saying that PBI should be there for upcoming sprint, but PO is not providing. So why is he not providing? What's the reason he's not providing that? That's what you need to get to. What's going on? Why are you not providing us backlog for the next sprint? That's what you need to get to, and you need to reach out to management and you need to get on top of it. Why are you not providing us the work log for what we are going to be working on? This is a risk. Reach out to his boss. What's going on? Why is this PO not providing us the work? Right? And have that down in the working agreement when you start. What we will have a healthy backlog as a team, because that is a risk. So you need to sit down with your PO, Paresh, and you need to have that conversation. Okay. The next question is from investing world. If development team delay in delivery of code by 3 days to the testing team, how to handle this situation? So first of all, you need to do a root cause analysis why this is happening. Okay, why is the development team delaying in delivery of code by 3 days? What's going on? What happened? Was there a dependency? What was the reason? Have that reason written down and bring it up in the retrospective. And when you bring it up in the retrospective, as a scrum master, as a facilitator, it is your responsibility not just discuss it, but hold someone accountable. Why did this happen? Who is the person accountable so that this doesn't happen again? Okay, that's the first thing you should do. Now, if you don't have enough code, if the testing team is already getting it late 3 days, in that case I would suggest that test whatever you can and release whatever you can. Don't let the release be empty. If you have already planned a release and if you cannot wait, test whatever you have and then release it. Don't leave it hanging. If you have a smaller MVP that you can release that. If you have a higher MVP that you can release that, but release something. Don't let it go empty, and then communicate with the business simultaneously that this is what's going on and this is the unexpected issue that came up, and because of this we are late by 3 days. So have that conversation with them so that they know what's going on, and then don't let the release go empty. Release something, maybe small thing, but release something. Investing world, that's how I would go about it. Okay, so this is the last question I have here. Last question is by Azhar Nadaf. What if there is no existing scrum team and you will be the scrum master who need to start it from scratch? Okay, very interesting. What if there is no existing scrum team and you will be the scrum master who need to start it from scratch? So yeah, that's what I did in my current role. in a startup. So we didn't have any scrum team, we didn't have any employees, so we basically started hiring. And so, first of all, you need to understand, if you're starting the team from scratch, you need to understand that you will need to hire people. Okay, you need to understand the capabilities that you need to hire for, whether you need to hire for Angular or React or this and that, what you need to hire for. Okay, first start by hiring a senior person in everything. Start by hiring a senior full stack developer, start by hiring a senior tester, start by hiring a senior designer, and start by hiring a senior cloud person. Once you have all these domains, cloud, design, architect, full stack developer, and then someone in testing, and then nowadays you can also hire a security consultant, and you can work as a security consultant yourself. It's very easy, the basics are easy. I did that for quite some time. So, so you can do that, right? You need to hire all these four domains, the highest person that you can hire in all these four domains. That's how you will get started. Once you have hired these people in these domains, then let those people hire people under them. Let those people build the team under them. You just sit back, okay? Let them do the work. Okay, that's how you will build a team when you're building a team from scratch. Now, when you are building a team from scratch as a scrum master, you have a huge advantage, because now you can implement processes that you want them to work on. You can implement the scrum process to the T, because you don't have any baggage from the past, right? If you're working in a team, you're working in an old team, and they have a lot of baggage, they don't have a proper backlog and this and that, and things take time to kind of change. But in a new team, everything is fresh. You can start, hey, this week we'll have our backlog refinement session, we'll design our backlog. We have pre-backlog refinement session, we'll design our backlog for the next 6 months. PO, let's come together, let's work on it. Okay, so you can implement and you can dictate the process, and you can make sure that they follow the process to the T. So when you are joining in as a new scrum master and you're building the team from scratch, you have a lot of leverage, and you need to show your expertise. And this is a great learning experience if you are in a situation, because this will make you such a powerful scrum master long term. Azar, I have done this in my startup, in my current role, and I have learned so much: how to manage business holders, how to manage stakeholders, how to manage CEO, how to manage this. And I have learned so much in my current role, and I'm forever grateful for it. So that's how I would go about it. Guys, that was it for this session. Please like and subscribe. If you have any more questions, leave them in the chat. I'm here. If not, click on the link down below. And when you are clicking on the link down below, remember that I am the only person who can help you get a Scrum Master job in this market. I'm the only person who can do that. Click on the link down below. Let me help you become Scrum Masters, because I'm the only person who can do that. Thank you so much for watching, guys. And we will see you guys in the next live stream. This has been wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Timor. Thank you, Anna. Adios, amigos.